is March 25th, 12 o'clock. Thanks for being here. We'll meet in order. So first up, I'm looking for approval of the PC minutes from February 25th. Does anybody have any corrections or discussion? Hearing none, do I hear an approval? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion is made by Kyle.
I'll second it.
Second by Michael. Now it's time for public comment. Do you have anybody that wishes to address the study group? I think we're all here. Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Paul Tigan from City of Salem. Just wanted to announce my presence. Sorry to be a minute or two late.
Hi, Paul. And I guess this is probably your first meeting with us.
I was here in January, but unfortunately not able to make it last month.
Okay. Are you going to be the regular for the City of Salem?
Yes, that's right. I will be and Mickey Varney, our Ward 8 counselor, will be serving as the alternate.
Okay. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment to be made? I didn't hear anything. All right, move right along here. Next up is adoption of SKATS for 2025-2026 UPW. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. All right, in your agenda item D is the draft union. Yeah, it's funny these days. Our planning work program for the fiscal year 25-26. You'll note if you've looked at it, there's some red, and so apparently there's been some changes since you saw it in January. I'll give you a brief little overview on the timeline of the development of the document, then talk briefly about the changes that have been made and the next steps. So Mike provided a overview of the timeline last time, but in January at your meeting, you saw a draft of the document that lays out what we plan to do and transit plans to do with the money that provide to them from federal transit in the next fiscal year. And we took comments from you and the TAC and provided another version of the draft to ODOT, Federal Highway and Federal Transit for a meeting on February 18th to discuss the document. We received feedback from those organizations as well. And notification on February 20th that Federal Highway headquarters in DC would be reviewing all the UPWPs in the country. That's about 405, 410 MPOs, which is a different situation than previous. And so we decided at that time to move up the adoption to March to make sure that we can get a timely approval from the feds. And also at that time, Federal Highway provided us guidance that references to executive orders that have been rescinded would not be in the UPWP, and that just statutory law be included in the discussion. So in your February meeting, you heard roughly the same timeline and what we were going to do. 3 days later, Federal Highway staff at Oregon informed us that the Federal Highway headquarters in DC will not actually be reviewing the UPWP, and it will be done by the division staff, but we're going to go for adoption because we've made the changes. So that's the timeline as of today. So we've made a number of changes to the document. As you can see, there have been corrections. So we've made grammar, spelling, table numbering, all those fun little things have been changed. There was a section on the planning process responsibility section, which is on page 9 and 10. Inadvertently, when rebuilding the UPWP from last year, I copied over the section that's previous, which is about the MPO, designation of MPOs, SKATS MPO and SKATS committees. I copied that twice. The correct language for the planning process responsibilities has been put into this document now. Also on March 8th, Federal Highway provided us with the final report on our certification review that took place last year. We had a corrective action which required slight change to what we were planning to do for the corrective action, because the corrective action also was kind of addressing an executive order that no longer exists. So that's been changed as well. Side note, in May, you will receive a update or presentation about the water annual review certification review report, either by Mike or Federal Highways, TBD, which one. Also, corrections, the amount of 5303, this is the federal transit money that we receive and then usually pass most of it on to transit. We're passing more on to transit, and so they're also updating their match amount. New additions, table 13 and 14, which discuss funding, were added. And this, some of the numbers in some of the other change, the tables have also been updated to reflect the last final numbers for all that. As I mentioned, the certification review, we also have an appendix and the PDF that's available online and that will be in the final document that has the certification review letter. And then deletion or changes. So the rescinded executive orders, primarily about environmental justice, language was removed from the document. We also removed some of the local planning efforts that we are put into context, but we do not participate in, except to get the results there. So that's the changes to the document. If you've gone through and you have any questions about it, let me know. To let you know the next steps, we're asking for adoption of the UPWP with all the changes as shown. Clean up the document with, accept all the changes, send this off to Federal Highway to get their approval, which will allow agreements to be signed before, well, in May or June, depending on workload by Federal Highway and ODOT, to allow funding for fiscal year 25 to 26 to start on July 1st. And that's my brief overview of the document. Are there any questions?
Yeah, question from Salem. Certainly it stands out. I think the removal of mentions of climate change, environmental justice, I think I understand the motivation to try and separate that language from things that are no longer supported by executive order. I guess I'm just curious, is that what other organizations at our level are doing as well? Is that sort of the conversation?
For the most part, yes. The guidance direction from Federal Highway staff and the division officer in Oregon was to ensure that the UPWP represents what is in law and not if it has the executive orders, language from the old executive orders, to remove those. Climate change is one of let's see, environmental justice can be addressed by Title VI, which is a law. So as the PC directed us in January to remove environmental justice and discuss low-income and minority populations, that's under Title VI. People are still required to do work on that. So that's where we're, what we and most of the MPOs in the country are doing, as far as I know. And Mike can add to it.
As all this was changing, there were definitely discussions among different MPOs, like the Metro MPO and Eugene MPO. We're discussing this among ourselves, and we're all kind of going the same direction. We don't want our work programs to be rejected because we use words that the new administration doesn't like. So I think we're all making the same effort.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to that. I do believe that environmental justice is rooted in both the 14th Amendment for equal protection under the law and plenty of other different laws that have been passed, like you mentioned, though. I recognize there's some words that are getting caught up in the algorithm of the day, I would say.
And there's more that can be discussed, but yeah, the algorithm was probably defining the words that were suggested not to be used.
Yeah.
And the
Title
potential,
6 environmental justice though, isn't it?
it is,
We're addressing minorities and low income folks, isn't that
yeah,
justice? That's what justice is.
right.
Yeah,
But
So
there's
we're
a,
redundant if we use all these extra words, and why let it get in the way of real progress in jobs and healthcare transportation? Just because somebody in Washington DC has, I'm not gonna get too graphic, but they're emotional about certain words, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I'm glad we're getting rid of them, by the way, but it would be redundant, I think. It accomplishes the same goal, a good goal that he's talking about.
Yeah,
I appreciate the clarification. Of course, it stood out, and I think it's worthy of us to discuss as a group, and that's good.
I'll just say that, things at the federal level are changing quite quickly, and then we're kind of relying on our Oregon division staff who are closer and getting information from the headquarters about what to not include. So we're going with their recommendations of what we shouldn't include in our UPWP.
Now, I don't want to go off the ranch too far here, but ODOT has like $30 million budget line for social environmental justice budget. Can that get in the way of this too? That can get, I mean, of these plans and
probably not our
projects.
plans. They also have, state money that they can use, and since we're pretty much federal money.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
color of money helps, is what you,
No, I want them to be helping us. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Just hope they're taking some steps to avoid any snafu. Because somebody doesn't like some words in the budget, and I don't know what more to say. That's where we're at.
it's a new situation for us.
It's a brand new world. I'm agree with that.
It is. Anybody else have anything? So we're looking for approval of resolution 2506.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Alright, so we got Anna and Kyle seconding. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Three nays. Motion passes. Thank you. Next up, update on the 2022 MTIP development. Steve.
Okay, so there's a timeline in the packet, if folks want to follow along there. But I also have a couple of slides, which I'll share in a moment. But this is just going to be a brief overview. Next month, we'll actually give an overview of the project applications that came in, and we'll talk about the initial rankings that we'll have at that point from our technical advisory committee. But just as the high level overview, we have 15 applications. The requests were for a total of $59.4 million in discretionary funds. We're estimating that for the first 4 years of the TIP, so that's kind of the core 4 years, is that we'll have about $28 million in SKATS discretionary funds to distribute. And then we have a couple of illustrative years, 2031 and 2032, which can be used to program projects that might take a little bit longer to work through construction or work through all the project phases. So the, well, actually, I'll share now my screen, and then I'll keep talking in a moment. Cool. So basically, the slides are just going to be a quick timeline of where we are right now. But this first slide is an overview of what we've been doing in March, basically. And the majority of this is the scoring process, essentially. So at the March TAC meeting, we had project applicants give a short presentation and answer questions for other TAC members about their applications for funding. And then the other thing that we did in that meeting was we designated representatives to a technical scoring work group. That sort of smaller group of TAC members set aside a time, and we actually did it this past Friday where we went through and did a consensus technical score for all 15 projects. So we have that part in hand and ready. And then the other half of the scoring is our qualitative scoring. The deadline for TAC members is to submit those to us via email by tomorrow. So I'll be doing some follow-up with some folks. Essentially, well, I'll skip to the next slide here. At the April 8th meeting, we'll have our total qualitative and technical scores, and that'll give us our initial project ranking. And at that point, the TAC will have a chance to review the initial ranking, provide feedback, provide thoughts about them, and then we will figure out which projects would be forwarded to ODOT for a scope review and a review of cost estimates. We won't be doing that for all the projects, but probably like 3 to 5 of them, just to get, just to review the thoroughness and ensure that cost estimates are seeming accurate. The other part that we'll do at the April meeting is begin to talk again with the TAC about funding levels for our regional programs. So that's our transportation options program, our MPO planning program, so funding for the MPO itself, Safe Routes to School, and then the Regional Traffic Control Center. So those programs don't fill out the same application as the projects, but we'll still be talking about them because that funding for those will come out of that 28 million that's available for the 4-year period. So from there in April, we're going to do an overview of the applications with this group to familiarize with the 15 applications that came in. We'll also be doing a public review period. We have a story map set up with some of the high level information about the applications themselves, and we'll ask for public input on any of the projects I think this time we're actually going to ask them to email for us or just leave comments, or I think we've done.
In the past, we've often had a map where people went to each project and left information, and this is a better narrative. I think you can kind of scroll through and see where they're located, and then we're asking just at the end to go ahead and submit comments if you have them. It's prettier.
I like that. Where is this going to be? And how will this be dispersed in public?
Yep. Go ahead.
Any way we can.
So you just send to all board members.
We'll send to
Just
board
send to our
members. We have
constituents.
email lists. It's not necessarily, we're not surveying, we're not doing questions, but it's just to disseminate the information and see where we've got these 15 applications.
Okay, so then following those April meetings, we'll have some time to review the public comments, also the feedback on the scoping that we received from ODOT. So there might be some tweaks and changes to some of the applications depending on what type of feedback we receive. And then June, we'll bring some funding options to both the TAC and PC for comment and review. And then our hope is that in the July TAC and PC meetings, we'll be able to move into actually recommending projects for inclusion into the TIP. So that's the end of the timeline on my slides. There are a few, in the attachment in the packet, there's a little bit more information that goes through, might have to reshare my screen, that goes through May of 2026, because that's when the actual TIP will be adopted. So this is a little more inclusive what's in here. And so Basically, after that July meeting, which is at the bottom here, we'll have our projects for inclusion in the TIP, and then at that point, we'll go to develop the TIP document and then go through the process for adoption, which will be in the spring of 2026. So.
Yeah, there's just a lot of writing up of once the projects are recommended, that's obviously a critical step in the whole path, but then there's the write-up of everything, the financial constraint, the write-up of the public review. Public gets to review the final document again, the full document, and have a public hearing. So while decision was it June, July? July.
Yep.
It's probably the biggest decision, which projects do you want funding in the TIP? There are several months of preparing that document and giving the public a chance to respond to your final decision in the full document. And it's got to be done a certain way so that it can be approved at the budget heads.
Any other questions for Steve on this? Okay, hearing none, moving ahead. Steve, we're back with you, some of the MTIP modifications.
Okay, I'll just share my screen again. This is the last page in the packet is the list of TIP modifications since the last meeting in February. So the first one on the list is the additional funding that was approved at the last PC meeting for the project. And so that's been processed and updated into the TIP and Oregon statewide STIP as well. And then the second and third amendments in here actually go together. Basically, we did a funding swap where we moved funding for between programs from one project to another. So we added carbon reduction funding to the Salem Traffic Signal Control Center project that was moved over from the Connecticut Avenue construction project that Marion County is doing. And then we, in the other direction, moved surface transportation block grant back to the Connecticut project, both in the same amounts. And the reason for doing that was the Salem traffic signal project is going to obligate sooner. And so that gives us a little more certainty that those funds are going to be in line to be reimbursed by the federal government. And since that needs to obligate, I think, by the end of June, we felt like that was a better timeline to get those funds out the door. That's all I have on that, unless there are questions about that.
We are a quiet group today. What's up?
I was gonna say, well, maybe we should just don't write climate in your request for reimbursement about the
I
traffic.
haven't muted the
control
Zoom
center.
call, have we?
Before we adjourn, I want to clarify something I said. I used the word emotional. I was not referring to the people that wanted those words in there. I was referring to the people that don't want those words in there. Me personally, I don't care what the words are. I care about concrete and asphalt on the ground. That's what I care about. Put whatever words in they want. I don't care. Just don't get in the way of that.
Let's get them done.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And
it's
one more thing, and I love people that are passionate about something. Even if you disagree with me, I'll work with somebody that's passionate because we can get there. We can. And believe me, when it comes to emotion, I can be extremely emotional. So I want to just clarify that everybody knew where I was coming from. Because words mean a lot.
yeah, well, so the federal formula program, it's called the Carbon Reduction Program, so I have to call it that. But I do.
Can't reduce the carbon either, just how we get, I want a glide path, not a cliff. That's what my daughter breathes the air too.
All right, informational items. Yes, staff. Who wants to take the first one?
Well, the first one's pretty easy. But it may be a little more complicated. So our meeting's the 22nd of next month. But the big thing is that your last meeting, we had some amendments to our transportation plan to specifically include the Center Street Bridge, and not just phase 1, but phase 2, which may not happen until 2030 or 40 or sometime in, a later period. Our plan goes out to 2050. But to go through the NEPA process, which is a federal process, they required us to have both phase one, which is going to construction in 2026, phase two, which is, like I said, we don't know when it would be in, but let's just say 2040, to be in the plan, to show financial constraint for the plan, and to show other things that Ray wrote up in all the amendment material that you all looked at last month and put out for public review and comment. So it's out, public review and comment right now. Amy, you were just telling me tomorrow's the last day?
3 more days.
3 more days for the public to submit their comments so we can, which is the number, is it 30 days?
30.
30 days comment period, thank you. So we will look at those comments that come in and show it to our TAC, I assume if we have them already, and also show them to you. And then we'll have a public meeting on the 22nd, obviously a SKATS meeting, but we'll have a public hearing to see if anyone wants to come here and give public testimony before that amendment is voted on by the members of the policy committee. So that's something we don't do all too often, amendments to our plan. It's more formal. And sometimes the public does come out on an issue that they feel strongly about. So I just want to let you know that that's what we're doing tonight, that amendment to our plan, and we're asking you to adopt those amendments. And it's one step in many going forward with that Center Street Bridge, and Anna could probably brief us again if you had questions about that. TAC meeting on April 8th. The OMPOC meeting, which is the other MPO members meeting together, is May 2nd. And I don't know, Chair, if you will be available May 2nd. Do you want to make that decision later on, or?
I'm probably not going to be available.
Okay.
So, and I'll cover that here at the end of the meeting.
Okay. So we would like to have at least one, if not 2 people attending the OMPOC meeting. It's a virtual meeting, I believe. All our past meetings have been virtual, although I think they're starting to talk about having in-person meetings at some point in the future. And then we have a list of the OTC meetings coming up. And then the transportation planning update is mostly talking about the 2732 tip, which is the things that Steve just covered, but just give you a quick summary of that work being done now and then moving forward all the way to July. So that's all we have for the other planning items, if there's any questions.
The May 7th meeting, is that here?
Second?
Meeting.
No, it's probably gonna be virtual.
Okay,
Yeah. Over
we had a
Zoom.
conflict that day too.
Second.
Oh, it's the second?
Yeah.
Oh, forgive me.
Yeah, May 2nd.
Yeah,
It's the third-
Hearing aids.
Yeah, it's the third bullet on the agenda item.
Okay.
May 2nd.
Chair,
Yes.
can I request that you resend out that the staff resend out the NEPA document that you referred to that we'll be looking at or hearing public testimony about on April 22nd? I'm not sure that I've saw the original.
Yeah, it's not a NEPA document, just for clarification. It is our amendment to our long-range plan. So that's what the amendment is doing, but it's part of the process that NEPA has to go through.
They need for their NEPA.
They need for their NEPA, ODOT needs it for their NEPA, but for us, it's just an amendment to the plan, but we can certainly send it to you. And it was also in the last month's agenda packet.
And it will be in next month.
Yeah. But if
Maybe
you
I'll
can't take
just-
that, we could send it up to you.
Yeah, sorry, as a point of order, it'd be great if you could just double check that my name is on your mailing list. I didn't receive the packet for this meeting or the last meeting, so I've just been having to go back and download them on my phone. So
My apologies, we'll check that.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
And we'll send you that packet. We'll send you the amendment material. So you have it.
And will you be sending out a link to that meeting, obviously, so at home I can.
Which one there are?
Yeah, the
OMPOC meeting? It's in May. I don't know if I've gotten a link for it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, somewhere to
When
check
it gets
in.
it done.
So I'm at home, I can be on the virtual.
Yeah, like I said, it's a Zoom link. I don't think I've got the email that says, here's the Zoom link to
Okay,
you.
forgive me.
That's what I
But
need.
what we getting?
Whoever is, well, it's not for all and SKATS members,
You said you wanted 2 people.
1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I'll help out if you need help. That's my point. If
Yeah.
you don't need me, that's fine too. I'll find, maybe we'll drink beer instead.
Well, I think that's what we're discussing right now. Who wants to substitute for Commissioner Morhorse for that meeting?
So now I may be able to make it, just so everybody knows, I'm gonna be going in for surgeries on my vocal cords. So I was April 7th. And I have absolutely no silence for 2 or no words for 2 to 3 weeks. I'll find out more after surgery once he's done. I mean, I can't even whisper. So my house is very quiet and conversations are one way. But once I get done with the surgery, I'm gonna be looking at probably another one, just as I get healed.
Hmm.
I've already gone through one, and it was about a month before I could carry on a conversation for 5 minutes. My voice would start to leave. So it's not really conducive to my personality to be quiet, but, so Sadie, my vice chair, the gavel will be yours. I'll be glad to provide it. If you think you need it, I can get you one. But you've been here for a long time, pretty good group. So.
Yeah,
I think
appreciate the heads up.
You're welcome. So,
Good luck.
yeah. It's all good. So, on the 2nd, I might be able to do it. I can listen in. I don't think there's any presentations at UPWP other than just a few small comments. I've been to those meetings before. And Sadie, I'd like to give you the first chance to, that would being the vice chair, whether you'd like to go or not, and then you share with us. in your
Yeah, I
meeting.
appreciate the offer and the extension. And you said Monday, the 7th, which I'm used to OMPOC being on a Friday for some reason.
That's my surgery, Monday, the
Oh.
7th.
Okay,
So the OMPOC meeting is May 2nd.
Second,
okay.
the 2nd.
It's usually a morning.
It's 9 to 12, May 2nd, yeah. And that's all the information I got. Hold the date.
I can be available for that.
Well, it takes 3 hours to get it. I know.
There's a lot of presentations by ODOT on various plans they're doing to the MPOs, and then there's discussion by the MPOs of what's going on in their own region. So it's a sharing opportunity from ODOT and MPOs back.
It's a pretty interesting meeting. Yeah. So basically, I'm gonna be very quiet for the next 3 to 4 months. So I don't mean to dump this on you, Sadie, but thank you. And we're doing the same thing with MIC. My vice chair is taking over for me there as well. So. And Anna has my email and my text number, so we can still get things done around Polk County. With that said, is there anything else that we need to address today?
Just briefly, at the last meeting, I said I wanted to set up some one-on-one or group presentations for the policy committee meeting members that are new. Some of you know this, but I've been out on medical leave most of the month, both for my wife, but also my own health. I can't shake, so I'm resting at home. So I haven't set any of those up. I'm going to try to set them up for April. You said something earlier, maybe setting up for the next month's meeting at 11, and I'll look at my calendar. I'm sure it's available. So I'll send something out for times in April. Sorry, excuse me for postponing that, but couldn't do it.
I'll welcome that. Thank you so much for the offer.
And in the packet, and following each yours, there's a great one-pager on the Salem Third Bridge that Mike put together. It's very informational. It's great to overview that. And Anna is an expert on the Third Bridge or on the Center Street Bridge. So if you need any questions, she's got all the answers.
Chair, can I just mention this?
Absolutely.
I put it in the packet. You got a copy of this at your last meeting, but it didn't go in the packet because it was too late to be included in the mail packet. But this was handed out at the last meeting. And what this is the letter from ODOT explaining how the full Center Street Bridge seismic upgrade meets financial constraint. That ODOT is committing funds for, phase 1 and later on for phase 2 for the long term to do this project, which was another kind of requirement of the NEPA process to show how, there's commitment and historical background for funding these projects. So, I got handed out, but I wanted to officially put in the packet, so it was kind of officially, and the public could see this too. So this letter, it was in this month's packet, but we looked at it last month as well.
Well, the Center Street Bridge is fast becoming Ward 1's most popular piece of infrastructure. So it turns out I'll be paying a lot of attention to it over the next 4 years.
Yeah, it's great. It started at $60 million project and now it's at 200 million for phase one. So it's gonna be curious to see with all of the projects doubling in costs, what this will be when we're done and ready for phase two.
Well, we love investment in Salem's Ward 1. So there you go.
Right. Well, with that, let's be on record. It is 12:37. The quickest SKATS meeting we've ever had on record. So great job, everybody. We'll see you in a few months.
Bless you all.
Thank you.
A lot more